Welcome to the Finding Favorites podcast, where we explore your favorite things without using an algorithm. Here's your host, Leah Jones.
Hello and welcome to Finding Favorites. I'm your host, Leah Jones, and this is like a little mini episode. I have moved to an every other week interview schedule, which allowed me to bring on a professional sound engineer. So thank you to Rob Abrazato for joining the Finding Favorites team. But with that, it's been a few weeks since I did an intro. I don't know, I'm a few years in and I'm trying to figure out the flow of the podcast still. One that matches, honestly, commuting 3 days a week, and being president at my synagogue, which both take a fair amount of time. So I thought I would do a little interlude, a mini episode. So I wanted to catch up on what I've been up to lately. I'm going to share a season 2 trailer for Upper Middlebrow and put out the first official call for the best of 2023 voicemails, because December is next week, friends. I wrote a piece this year about my fandom of How Did This Get Made, and how my fandom of Hamilton walked so that my fandom of How Did This Get Made could run. But since I fell in love with Hamilton for the first time, I've been getting season tickets to Broadway in Chicago. And this season was dense with shows. In the last month, now 2 months, I saw the Lehman trilogy, which is a 3-act play about the Lehman brothers, the revival of Company, What a Wonderful World, Beetlejuice. And then to cap things off, I took my nephews and went with a bunch of friends to see Hamilton. And the current tour that Chicago has is outstanding. Now, I don't think for me, the top pairing of Hamilton and Burr was the Chicago pairing of Miguel Cervantes and Joshua Henry. But I want to say that the cast currently in Chicago has really made Hamilton their own. The Jefferson-Madison duo have really amped up the comedy of their parts. And the Eliza, this is the best Eliza I've ever seen. She belts during Burn. And I often have a hard time connecting to that song. But the current actress in Chicago playing Eliza is just killing it. So this Hamilton tour, it's different every time you see it. And this was a really, really fun show. I've also been to see a lot of stand-up comedy. Nicole Byer was at the Riv. Ronnie and I got tickets from his cousin to see Samantha Bee. We went and we saw Kyle Kinane for Kinane's Giving at Talia Hall. I went to 2 nights of How Did This Get Made in Chicago, 1 night in New York. And when I was in New York, I also saw the new and final Sondheim musical, Here We Are. And I went to the New York Bagel Fest with my friend Patty, where I ran into Kosha Dills. So like a very New York weekend. And I would say that I'm someone who's not afraid to go to shows alone. Yesterday, I went and saw the movie Next Goal Wins, because I finally got the Regal Unlimited pass. And so I was kind of having a quiet Saturday and I was like, I'll just go see a movie. So I go to shows alone a lot. I go to comedy alone. I go to podcasts alone, but have recently realized it's actually fun doing that with people, ? Exclamation point. So I got to take some first timers to How Did This Get Made and to Hamilton. Everybody who went to see How Did This Get Made with me for the first time reported back that now they understand why I travel so much for that show. We laughed a ton. It was a great time. Ronnie and Jason Mantzoukas definitely had a mind meld moment about their love of their TiVos. That really just touched the cockles of my heart. All of this, though, has been during, I would say, the fog of war in Israel. The news since October 7th has been heartbreaking, and it's brutal on all sides. The pogrom against the music festival and the kibbutzim in the south of Israel was unlike anything we've seen in years. It was so scary. I spent a couple weeks in bed just having an existential crisis, which was not helpful for anyone, really. And have just been watching and waiting and feeling pretty helpless in this situation. I am really relieved that the hostages that are related to a friend of mine were released yesterday. But we have to get all of the hostages home. And I hope that this, pause in fighting and the daily release of hostages can continue until they're all home and not just this first 50. So I spent a lot of time doom scrolling the news out of Israel and Gaza. And it's just heartbreaking, all of it, really. And yeah, so I just want to acknowledge that I've been going out and doing a lot of things. In part, people talk about, we still have to find our joy. We still have to find joy in the world. And so I don't think by going out and experiencing things in the world, I'm ignoring what's happening. It's just that I'm doing both, I guess. So with that, I want, the podcast Upper Middlebrow, because Jesse's been on twice, Chris has been on once, but it is a hangout vibe podcast of talking about movies and literature, and they have just launched a food season and sent me the trailer, and so I wanted to share the trailer with you. And when we're back from the trailer, we will talk about the best of 2023.
Chris.
Yes.
How would you describe our podcast, Upper Middlebrow?
Let's see. We get together and we ostensibly talk about books and other works of fiction. Really, it's an excuse for us to hang out. And we really do talk about books, but it's like a hangout with my best friend where both of us end up enlarged in ways that we didn't anticipate beforehand.
Well, that was a very lovely way to put it. But if you strip it down to the basic format, it's two guys talking about books or whatever they want to for a very long time, which is like a million other podcasts. So why is our podcast worth listening to? If it is so similar to millions of podcasts in format.
Yeah. That I am always skeptical about my own efforts of things.
It's a hard question for you when I say, why is our podcast good?
Yes,
You're
it's
like,
very
that's a
difficult.
toughie.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. When are we at our best?
I would say that we are at our best when we are really getting into the nitty-gritty of how pieces of literature or culture work, because I think it's something that you and I really think very hard about.
He's pushing the language a little bit more than somebody in that position would.
What are the words that clue you into that reading? Like, how do you pull that out of there and be like, oh, this is, because it's complicated, right? Satire is so complicated.
Right.
So first we have to sort out who's the target. And I think in this case, the mayor is the butt of the joke.
The mayor and his ilk.
Yes, exactly. That's
brokers.
exactly what, yeah.
Yeah.
It would be something like, and his feathered ilk or his tuxedoed ilk or something,
His
something like that.
Right.
So I think one side of our podcast that is really good is when we're deep in the weeds of what is this book? How does it work? How is it achieving the things that it's sort of setting out to do? Then I think the other pole at which we are our best, when we are essentially like building a Tower of Babel of hilarity.
There's also, of course, the police song, Don't Stand So Close to Me, in which a teacher protagonist is uncomfortably attracted to a student.
Didn't know that.
Don't stand.
Didn't know that was the
Don't stand.
subtext of that song.
Or it's not even really subtext. The first line is, young teacher, the subject of schoolgirl fantasy. She wants him so badly, knows what she wants to be. First,
Yeah, that's
from
text.
memory.
That's not subtext. That's just text.
It's not like Francine. So listener, if that sounds like something you'd like to listen to, our next season is coming up really soon, and it is going to be about foodie films. And the first one is Babette's Feast. And you can listen to Upper Middlebrow at uppermiddlebrow.com or wherever in the very wide world you find your podcasts.
Jesse Dukes is the host now.
Awesome. Thank you, Jesse and Chris. So get on your podcatcher and go and subscribe to Upper Middlebrow. Leave them a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Leave Finding Favorites a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Good Pods. Those are the two places where it seems like you can really leave reviews. So finally, it's almost December, which means it's time to put together the best of 2023 call-in show. So send me your voice notes or your audio files. I don't know, go 1 to 5 minutes with your best of 2023. I love this episode. People have made friends through this episode. Monica Raida and Terry Gant connected over magic and now have become really close friends. And it's probably not the only people who have found hobbies or new things to read. I think my friend Harry in Israel found a set of comic books that Steve in St. Louis suggested last year. And he stopped the podcast, got the comics, read through all the comics, and then started listening again. So this best of episode is one of the highlights. It is the highlight of the year. So send me your audio files. Email me at findingfavoritspodcast@gmail.com with your best of 2023 audio clip. You can also send a voice note on WhatsApp or text if you've got my phone number. So send me your voice notes, and we'll be back next week. I'm talking to Emily Drake about cozy games. I'm looking forward to that. So with all that said, get your boosters. If you haven't gotten that COVID booster yet, it's the hottest thing of the season. So get your booster, wear your mask, wash your hands, and keep enjoying your favorite things.
Thank you for listening to Finding Favorites with Leah Jones. Please make sure to subscribe and drop us a 5-star review on iTunes. Now, go out and enjoy your favorite things.